Hello, good day and welcome to um, the online result-based monitoring and evaluation course at Cloneshouse, Nigeria. We're happy to have you join this course. So, by the way, this is Unit 2 for Week 1 of this course, of this online course. And in Unit 2, we'll be explaining the difference between monitoring and evaluation. Yes, I mean, because the two words go hand in hand together. Um, it would be cool for us to see if even there's any difference between the two. Um, Also, we will be this course, you will be able to identify key implementation issues. Yes, because I mean, it's not just because we call it maybe program monitoring evaluation or result based, there aren't issues with it. So, but it is important as practitioners to understand what the issues are and the issues that we're currently dealing with, so that as evaluators, you could be able to deal with some of those issues as well. Also, in this unit, you will be establishing, we'll discuss how to establish and manage systems for organizations and I mean things to consider while establishing monitoring and evaluation systems. So in this unit, we will start by discussing what exactly is monitoring and what exactly is evaluation, and to establish if there are differences between these two words, and also discuss what traditional monitoring and evaluation is, and also then we proceed to discussing what result-based monitoring and evaluation is, which is yes, why you're in this online course. And yes, we would establish yes what are the key issues in result-based monitoring and evaluation, and why people do not actually consider it. So, what is actually monitoring? Um, I mean, I do say that most times a whole lot of us are actually doing monitoring and evaluation, and it is important to even mention that the practice of monitoring and evaluation is a cross-cutting field, just like you have in philosophy or statistics. So also is monitoring and evaluation itself, and the history dates back to the prehistory times. Um, when Egypt, yes, used to be the first civilized society of the world. So, I mean, since back then, the story of Egyptians that do have slaves. So, I mean, they always want to measure the number of bricks that are being molded by slaves every day. So there's the slave master that takes account of that. So you would term that as yes, a traditional monitoring system, and perhaps in terms of evaluation is now trying to do a proper assessment. And I mean, if then there was anything like assessing it in the broader view of things, but I mean, um, monitoring and evaluation has been in existence since the prehistory times in Egypt, when yeah they had slaves, and they normally measure the number of molds of blocks, the number of wheat or grains in the store, and this has been announced uh, yes by the king to the citizens. So I mean that's a form of monitoring and evaluation, and you will say that that's where the evolution of monitoring and evaluation started. But this course will not definitely discuss the history of monitoring and evaluation, but it is important that we understand it from that perspective. So, um, actually, some people also think monitoring and evaluation is more of a tech thing, a technology thing, like a tech tool or so. but it is actually not. It's actually a public management tool. Is more of management. Um, as we'll see as we go on, that it actually recognizes the people side of things, other than it's just being a technology tool. So we say it's a powerful management tool that can be used to improve the way governments and organizations achieve results. So I just use an example of Egypt in the prehistory times. Um, them using the number of bricks molded by slaves, and also grains and wheat that are stored in their barns. Yes, I mean, to show citizens of what they have achieved and what they are achieving in terms of results, although that's in terms of slavery, which is entirely different from what we have now. I mean, there's the popular Human Development Index, which is being published by the United Nations, which is an aggregation of data of development indicators from several countries. You could term that as a form of a monitoring and evaluation of growth indicators by different countries, and in short, that means that governments of countries are trying to show how they're achieving results, because you could measure results in terms of the Human Development Index for each country. So you could also think about it as a government trying to know the number of children it has given free back lunch food pack to, and also it assessing. You now talk about evaluation in terms of the assessment of the performance of children. These are several monitoring and evaluation ways. Also, you might look at it from the point of health systems in several countries. I mean, these are trying times in our lives now, and with proper monitoring and evaluation tool, governments of countries would have understood how um, how dysfunctional their health systems are in terms of um, number of beds to citizens, which is one of it. The number of doctors in a particular country. These are several indicators that are used also in the health systems as well. Um, the number of vaccines available to children that are under 5 in countries. I mean, you can go on and talk about this as you being able to have such tools, such system in place that can quickly measure government performance as it concerns these several health systems that are in place. So it's just a public management tool that can be used to improve the ways governments and organizations achieve results. And also, we meant improve. So it is not necessarily to show what the government has achieved, but also to in learning we can be able to improve if we know that um, there is a country, if we know that there is a state or there's a local government that has only one bed to 1,000 citizens, then it calls for us to improve such system and say no, we need to have to this power for us to say we're moving forward as government. So I mean, these are several dimensions uh, of the monitoring and evaluation. So, but what's monitoring itself? Like I've discussed, it's a continuous function that uses systematic collection of data on particular indicators to provide indications of progress and achievement of objectives of an intervention. So, um, um, for example, perhaps the Nigerian government wants to provide 10,000 primary health care 2 years ago, um, and in 774 local governments. So, I mean, the objective is to improve the health system, perhaps to reduce maternal mortality, for example. So, but we need to collect some data weekly, daily, monthly, daily, weekly, monthly, for us to be able to establish that, oh, we are moving towards achieving that objective. And that's those kind of data collection might include the number of patients coming to health facilities. It might include the number of vaccines available to healthcare facilities. It might include the number of intensive care units that is in each primary health care, and you can it could include the numbers of health workers that are being trained. And I mean, these are data you collect, or the registers of doctors or nurses at each PHC. These are data that you collect continuously. And if you think about education, yes, you could think about teachers register, which looks at the number of teachers present in a school, looks at school enrollments, which is, yes, the number of children that are in pupils that are in school at a particular time. And you can think about all this. If we go to agriculture, monitoring, yes, could be, yeah, the number of seedlings that is available to farmers at a particular uh, day, week, months, the number of grains available, the number of seedlings, rice seedlings put into the ground. So I mean, these are all things that you collect almost every day. Um, Almost every day. So that's what monitoring actually is all about. It's something you collect every day. It's continuous. So like your office attendance in your office, collection of attendance is actually monitoring because it's done every day as well. But I mean, evaluation is totally different, focuses on assessing projects, programs, or policies, including its design. So it normally answers the question of how. So other than what, which is yes, what, when, other than activities that are being done. So it focuses on an assessment of, it could be ongoing, it could be completed. In the following next weeks, we will focus on evaluation as a whole, and how it's different. So it is not necessarily a continuous collection of data, but it uses even monitoring data for evaluation. That's mainly what it does as well. So yes. So I mean, what are the differences? We've mentioned some of them. Monitoring could be ongoing and continuous. Yes, it's ongoing. You collect it routinely every time. Um, Teacher register, pupil enrollment, farmer seedlings that is being put into the ground, um, the weather, the daytime weather of a particular place, um, vaccines that are being given out in the day at the primary health care. Um, Talk of justice administration, yes, the number of prisoners that gets into the prison every day. Uh, these are several monitoring that goes on continuously, but evaluation is just time bound. You want to just think about assessing how your activities have been achieved after 3 months, or after 6 months, or after 1 year, or you want to look at, yes, let us look at the outcome, what has changed in terms of the primary health care in a particular country within 5 years. So, so that's what exactly evaluation means, which is totally different from monitoring. Yeah, monitoring is done in most times internally. Yes, I mean, organizations, institutions, they collect this data on their own. For example, the enrollment data that I talked about, they do collect it on their own, but evaluation most times is done externally. Yeah, at times it could be internal because some organizations do have internal evaluators as well that is interested in looking out for the outcomes of their projects, maybe in 3 years, in 4 years. And most times they're actually part-time, they work part-time. Evaluation could be participatory, in which there's an external evaluator that is working with an internal evaluator and also with the project staff. Yes, conducted several evaluations like that, where I come in as an external evaluator and I work with, yes, some non-government organizations or international government organizations or even government agencies to have their own monitoring officer or evaluation officer that will work with as well. So because it's internal, because monitoring is internal most times, so it becomes the responsibility of the management. So the management feels it's important. Um, while as an for evaluation, it is that yes, it's the responsibility of the evaluator, with also the commissioner to conduct such um, such activity. So with monitoring, which is, I mean, this is an advantage of monitoring, that it's that, yes, we do not wait until evaluation. So we are continuously getting feedback of how things are improving or not within the project. But for evaluation, it's only periodic. I mean, there's some development cooperation projects, programs, we need to wait like 4 years normally, 5 years normally, before we will conduct an ex post evaluation for it. For instance, after the project or the program has ended, we will then conduct evaluation. So it takes time before you get such feedback. So, I mean, with all this, you can start thinking about also what are the advantages, the disadvantages of monitoring and evaluation. So, I mean, all this comes in, and then you can think about it as a whole. So, when we say traditional M&E and result based, because I mean, there's result based M&E and there's traditional M&E, and these are approaches to monitoring and evaluation as well. The two does monitoring and evaluation, but there's a difference. In traditional monitoring and evaluation, which is a type of monitoring and evaluation that is being conducted in country by developing countries, and I mean, most African countries still do traditional M&E, in which the M&E is totally focused on compliance. So, and what I mean by that is that yes, we want to construct roads for particular communities. Ours is just to make sure that there is compliance, the road has been constructed, it's a 50-kilometer road, it has been constructed. Let's just make sure that that road was completed. So that's traditional monitoring. Also, an example could be, oh, we want to provide 1,000 tablets to school pupils in a particular community. The role of monitoring and evaluation for such community would just be to make sure that yes, 1,000 tablets were given to the children. If we talk about in terms of health systems, yes, we want to give out 10,000 vaccinations to newborn babies. So the role of a traditional M&E will be to make sure, measure that yes, 10,000 vaccines were actually delivered to newborn babies. So it tracks only inputs, activities, and outputs that comes from it. We will discuss this as part of result chain in our consequence unit for week 1. So it only measures that, like, oh, have they been able to deliver on the service? So, and I mean, like I said, most developing countries still do that. So an example is this that I already put here. So I got this data from the Universal Basic Education. So their school census data currently still looks at pupils enrollment, teachers qualification, teachers enrollment, and not necessarily focusing on the results from each of the schools. So it's not focusing on okay, so after we have provided tablets for these children, what next? As their learning improved, is their score in English or maths, as it improved? So, which then brings us to the result-based monitoring and evaluation, and it demonstrates the outcomes. Yes, we built roads. Um, how many goods and services has the road aided since it has been built? That is what that will look at. How many goods has it facilitated? What trade has the construction of such road facilitated? So in terms of income, in terms of maybe gross national income, how has it increased the gross national income of that community where the road has been constructed? So that's what we refer to as result based. Um, Classroom has been constructed, it has been checked and monitored, making sure it has been constructed. So that's a traditional result based traditional M&E. But now, what's the result in terms of learning outcomes of pupils in those classrooms? That's what result based is all about. So it answers the question of the outcomes itself, objectives. Have we achieved the objectives um, of our um, program or project? So in this week, in this unit, in this class, I will be focusing on chlorine distribution in Kiribati. So that's case 5. And the program focuses on, yes, the objective is to reduce diarrhea prevalence in Kiribati. And I mean, there are several activities which include distribution of chlorine to households so that they can use it to purify their water. Measuring the chlorine that is distributed will remain a traditional based M&E, but in terms of result based M&E will be, yes, have we been able to reduce the prevalence of diarrhea in that community? Has there been a reduction in child mortality, infant mortality due to diarrhea in that particular community? That will be the result based monitoring and evaluation. So I mean, there's a difference between these two, and also to state that in terms of traditional based M&E, this is being done by so many local NGOs because you only do your activities and you expect outputs from your activities. The other part of it, the outcomes and the impact, is being measured by the donor agency, the international partner that has given grants to this local NGO. So that's just a little way to look at the relationship between traditional based M&E and result based M&E. Also, if we look at it in terms of governments, perhaps in Nigeria, the federal government allocates funds to state governments or local government to build classrooms. Yes, so states can actually measure the number of classrooms and not necessarily look at the impact of the classrooms on the learning outcomes of children. So the federal government might be interested in that as well. Yeah. So, result-based M&E, which is the basis of this online course, has 12 components, which are very, very important and key. If you lose out any of these components, it might be detrimental to that M&E system. So we're talking about a system that actually produces results, and it has 12 components. And the first one is that, yes, there must be organizational structure that wants to support such kind of M&E system. So, I mean, for example, it could be that, yes, when you have the DG, the other person you are looking at that reports to the DG is actually the monitoring and evaluation officer. So that's in terms of organizational structure that supports our RBME. So the hierarchy at which the M&E officer is allows it to make decisions. That's what we mean by the structure and organizational capacity of an organization. So 2 is the human capacity for M&E systems, which necessarily means that in an organization, do you have the system support to carry out result-based M&E? System support means that do you have policies that support you to carry out result-based M&E system? Also, the second one is organizational capacity. Do you have tools? Do you have equipment that would allow you to conduct result-based monitoring and evaluation? Which means that tools we're talking about, computers, softwares, analysis, softwares, and all. Then the third one under human capacity for M&E systems will be that do you actually have skills and knowledge? Do your staff have skills and knowledge for result-based monitoring and evaluation? So which means could necessarily mean do you have a unit that has a data analyst, that have an evaluation officer, that have a communications officer, that has an information officer, that has a research officer, that can conduct all these components. So that's very important. The third component is the M&E partnerships. Yes, does your organization M&E department leverages on other offices that are versatile in terms of result-based M&E? So in terms of partnership stakeholders that can help you achieve the objectives of your programs. The fourth one is, do you have an M&E plan? Currently is a component of a result-based M&E. An M&E plan, which we will discuss in the 5th week, is just a narrative document about how you carry out result-based monitoring and evaluation, and the cost of it, which takes us to the costed work plan. So for every work plan, I've costed it. The 6th component will be that do you do advocacy, communications, and also culture for M&E? Do you are you creating a culture for M&E system by doing advocacy and communications within your organization or to your external partners? This might just involve a monthly skill share about monitoring and evaluation. That's a vivid example. 7 is the routine monitoring. Do you collect data routinely, every day, every hour, every second? So routine monitoring data could just be the numbers of births, so births that are being recorded in a particular country, or it could be the register for school enrollment in the country at a particular time, or daily, weekly, monthly. That's what we refer to as routine monitoring data. We will discuss this at length, perhaps from the 2nd week and the 3rd week. The 8th components are periodic surveys. So do you plan to have periodic surveys? So quarterly surveys, monthly surveys, annual surveys. So I mean that's what we refer to as periodic surveys. The 9th component is you having databases that are useful to M&E system. A database, for example, is the health management information system, the education management information system. So these are computer-based systems that are supposed to retrieve data for you automatically so that it can inform decisions and that it helps monitoring as well. The 10th component is supportive supervision and data auditing. I mean, you don't just expect that enumerators that are on the field will just be sending in data as you are put in a guideline. There are times and points in which we organize data auditing workshops for enumerators, for people that collect data from the field. So how do you audit data that they send in? And also, how do you train these enumerators as well? We will also discuss this in the second week and in the third week of this course as well. The 11th component is evaluation and research, which means what are the evaluation plans for a program or a research plan for a particular program. So in the third week and in the fourth week and fifth week, we will be discussing evaluation at length. And the 12th component, which is a key component, is yes, after doing all this, so how do we put together a report or an information system that we can use to improve the results of our program? So you can see the 12 components, and I mean, you can see this as a ring, as a pool of puzzles that you need to put together before it becomes whole. So it's important to have all these 12. And if you look at the green ring, which has different shades of it in here, this is the green ring, and it's the people, planning and partnership part of the component of the result-based M&E. It involves people, it involves planning, it involves partnership. And if you now look at the blue ring is the data part. We call it the art of a result-based M&E. So it's the art of it. It's the art bit. So you need data to now make the decisions, which is the part of the 12th components, which is you, yes, presenting your M&E results to improve results. This will be done. We will focus on this in the fifth week. Yes, the fifth week of this course. So I mean, these are the 12 components of the result-based M&E, and it is important as a practitioner to know this by heart. This is something we live with and we live by every time, trying to make sure that these components are part of a particular program that is creating a system for M&E. So look at it in terms of, yes, like the Ministry of Health of a country should have the Department of Monitoring and Evaluation should focus its attention on having these 12 components as a running body and organ that makes their monitoring and evaluation system to work together. Don't forget, in this course, I mean, there's a comment box on your Google Classroom. Please feel free to make comments on questions, suggestions, and some insights as well, and I'll be happy to be able to respond to them as well. So what are the issues with result-based monitoring and evaluation? Yes, this we see all the time. The nature of our work, I mean, we work in complex systems, which does not necessarily allow your logical frameworks that you have already prepared even before the work. I mean, things happen in life, and what you have planned out might not necessarily come to fruition. So if you think about impact, which is like something you want to measure in 6 years' time, think about you now planning for 6 years' time. I mean, you can say things, I mean, unintended consequences can cause your programs to be distracted and all that. So, and I mean, environments, the security can cause, just like the times we are in currently. So many programs are on delay currently because of the COVID-19 pandemic. So, I mean, this is, and this can happen to any program, any project. So, so it's important that it is important to know that the nature of the work itself hinders or becomes an issue for result-based monitoring and evaluation. Also, the culture of organizations also hinder BME because most people find it difficult to even think about an M&E. Most times they think about M&E officers as police, right? So you need a change system within organizations for them to be able to understand that, oh, the data on, for example, enrollment that I'm collecting is for us to be able to improve results and not necessarily to police you in making sure that yes, you come to work. So it takes time to create change. It takes time to build a culture out of a result based M&E. So because you still work with people, you need people to understand the work that you're doing, and changing behavior takes time um, as well. So also the third point is about yes, context. We work in diverse contexts. So for example, in Nigeria, I mean, it's difficult. The way you work in the north is not the way you work in the south. Uh, so there are different dimensions. Each of them have their own context. So which you need to think about. In terms of capacity, yes, also we've actually found out that yes, capacity is low. I mean, in one of our assessments that we did last year, you can check out our resources page on cloneshouse.com, which we published. I mean, the still lack of capacity is still so much in the country. So, and also you can see this in also several countries as well. In terms of capacity for evaluation. So, and one question will be that, oh, should evaluation be monitoring? Should it be quantitative? Should it be qualitative? And all that. So I mean, it's important to think about this, and also that um, people believe perhaps M&E does not have value. So in terms of cost-based analysis or cost-based effectiveness, so like what does it bring to the table? So these are some of the issues um, that we find. So it's important to note what do we actually monitor or evaluate? Um, Cuts across different things. Projects are very important. Programs, policies. I mean, yes, policies that guides an institution, an organization. They're very important that we are able to monitor and evaluate them. Also, programs as well. A program is an intervention with different activities. Um, uh, as well. So I mean, so and you might think of just a particular project, maybe in a community, in local governments, that you want to monitor or evaluate. At times, we do monitor and evaluate organizations as well. Um, and also sectors. So could be health sector, could be education, could be forestry. And also some thematic areas looking at its cross-cutting approaches, gender equity, gender equality, and a whole lot of that. And also development partners want to evaluate their country assistance, so they want to evaluate the aid they are giving to a particular um, country. So, I mean, these are different things we monitor and evaluate. And you can think about it like, oh, okay, in Nigeria, uh, there's a social program or social welfare program of the government. Inside that the social welfare program on its own is a program which now has different projects in it. A project could be feeding, the school feeding, which is also called a program as well. It could be the conditional cash transfers that goes to the poor. It could be the Earn Power program, which is also a project. So, I mean, within an overarching program, which is a social welfare program, you have several other programs or projects as well. You could think about monitoring and evaluating policies or regulations. So you could think about, okay, monitoring and evaluating the Police Act, maybe if it has achieved its objective, or monitoring and evaluating the Universal Basic Education Commission Act, if it has achieved its objective, or it could be to monitor and evaluate the National Health Act, if it has achieved its objective. So that would be in terms of policies. You could decide to monitor and evaluate organizations, for example, the National Assembly, for example, the National Health Insurance Scheme. So, I mean, you could go on and on and on in that way and focus your M&E on that. So, it's important to think about monitoring and evaluation. Just to recap this, monitoring has been a continuous collection of data, while evaluation, on the other side, is an assessment, a systemic assessment of your programs, policies, projects, sectors, organizations as well. And that, yes, these are being used, and these two words are used hand in hand, but they have their own differences, they have their advantages, they have their own disadvantages, which one needs to consider as well, but they still go hand in hand. Also, that there is a traditional M&E which focuses on activities and outputs and answers the question if the activity has been done, and also that it's majorly compliance, while there's the result-based monitoring and evaluation which focuses on if a program, project, policy has achieved its outcome, or its objectives, or even its impact on the society, and also that you could definitely think about monitoring and evaluation of programs, projects, policies, sectors, organizations. All these are encompassing. And lastly is the 12 components of monitoring and evaluation, which is important for you to have a system that does result-based monitoring and evaluation. The 12 components is very, very important, and I will encourage you as a participant to understand and know this in full. We will be discussing some of these components in the following weeks to come. So, and I hope you find it interesting. If you have issues about this online course, please do email noeloloco@cloneshouse.com or training@cloneshouse.com, or you can put a phone call through to this number. So, I mean, it's been exciting to have you following on this online course, and I wish you the best of the weeks ahead. And also, do not forget to make comments on your Google Classroom. So bye for now and take care.